You need combat? I got you. In the input manager, I made 3 new buttons for melee, range attacks, and a charge function. I gave our guy a nice katana and a hitbox. This just has a box collider marked as a trigger and a kinematic rigid body. The hitbox will be disabled for now. Okay, let's begin. First, we'll start with making a stat class script. In your new script, write system serializable here and remove mono behavior. That's how we make it a class, and then add in your stats. For example, I've added health, stamina, attack, speed, and drops. We can now save that and make a new script called player stats. In this script, we can now reference our stat class as a variable. And as you can see in the inspector, it will have everything that we made and we can edit the values however we like. At the end of the script, you can see that I have 2 pieces of public code, which is change stamina and change health. Make this public and then you can reference this from any other code. We just gotta put the amount in the bracket and then it will update the value. This clamp function is just to make sure that the range stays from 0 to the max stamina, which is set up at the start. Also, if you're wondering what this invoke here is, it's just to call the function after 1 second and it will keep calling it every second. I prefer to have this called once every second instead of putting it in an update. Now with that done, we can move on to making a test dummy. I made him here. Make sure to tag him as enemy. If you don't have a tag called enemy, that's because you haven't made it yet. Give it a dynamic rigid body and a box collider. I got this little code here set up that will just make the dummy follow the player and get knocked back when hit. I'll be going over enemy AI in another video with a much cleaner code, but feel free to take a look and copy some stuff. Make a script called enemy stats and it's going to be the same as the player stat script. Reference the stat class up here and make a function that will take away health when it's called. Also, if you like the way that the text popped up when damaging the enemy, this is how it's done. It will spawn the reference object, change the text to the damage dealt, and sets it to be deleted after half a second. Just to show you quickly, this is the prefab that you gotta make. Make sure that it's the normal one and not the Text Mesh Pro UGUI, otherwise you won't be able to change the layering and it will appear behind objects. Also, it has an animator playing a fade in and fade out animation at the start. After that, you can throw in where the reference is needed and that'll be it. You want to have some animation set up for your player doing different moves. After getting those animations sorted, this is how you set it up. Remember that little hitbox? Well, this is where it comes in. In the hit animation I made it switch on while it's in the swinging animation and make the box follow the sword. The hitbox has a code that will damage whatever entity touches it, referencing the take damage function we made in the enemy stat script. Using onTrigger enter 2D, put an if statement that will check if the collider it's colliding with is tagged as enemy, and if it is, it will search for the enemy stats component inside of it and reference the take damage function we've made. We put the damage number in here. For my case, I put the attack from the player stat times the attack multiplier in this script. For our range attacks, we'll have throwing animations, but no projectiles. Of course, we're not going to add the projectiles in our throwing animation. That's dumb. Instead, we're going to have it controlled by an animation event. Just clicking this button, we can get a marker in our animation timeline. And if we click this drop down here, which I hope your list is cleaner than mine, we can reference the public functions we've made and call them at this exact point of the animation. Mine is called shoot and I'll be covering what this function does in a second. For now, let's get these animations linked with each other in the animator. I made 3 parameters here, 2 triggers called hit and shoot, and 1 boolean called charged. From any state, I make a transition to hit depending on the hit trigger, same story for the shoot transition, and they both will revert back to the idle after some wait time. As for the charge transition, it will switch when the boolean is on, and it will only transfer back when the boolean is false. We will need to turn off exit time for this transition. With that done, let's look at the logic to make this work. Let's go into our controller script and add a few new things. Make these 6 new variables, fetch both of these components in the start, and make a new function for combat. For the melee attack, we want to put an if statement for when we trigger the attack button to make it trigger the attack animation, like this. Same thing for the range attack. To make sure that it doesn't fire like a machine gun, however, I have made a timer on it which will set this to 0.35. After counting down, it will allow the player to fire again. I have a separate function just for the charge. Using this if statement, if the button is being held down, it will raise the stamina value in our player stat script, and also turn this freeze boolean on, which will not allow the movement and combat functions to run through the update. And of course, referencing that in the animation boolean. And the function that we used for firing our projectiles is here. This alone will just spawn in a projectile, so we've got to give it its own logic. Let's make our prefab first. Make it an empty game object, Give it a sprite renderer, put your sprite in, I'll just put in a circle for now, give it a box collider with trigger on, and a dynamic rigid body with gravity scaling 0. That's if you don't want weight in your projectiles like me. Plus, you'd want to throw in the attack script that we made in the hitbox in this too. After that, we'll make a new script and it will look like this. Make 2 variables, one for the speed and one for referencing the rigid body. After fetching the rigid body component, if you just want your projectiles to shoot forward, then you'll just need to write these last 2 lines and you're good to go. As for me, I want my projectiles to automatically shoot towards the nearest enemy. So I got this code that I stole from the Unity forums that will get all of the enemies that are tagged enemy. And then in this for each loop, it will try to figure out which one is the closest and then return the value as a game object. After writing this, you want to go back up here and make this if statement. This will check if there's any enemies at all. If there are, it will get the direction of where they are and shoot the bullet in that direction. If there are no enemies, then it will just shoot forward as default. After doing that, come down here and make an onTrigger event 2D. Make an if statement that will check if the collided objects are tagged as enemy or surface, then delete itself. This extra bit is just to make a cool explosion happen, but I'll just show you how to do that in a future video. Once that's all done, you can throw the prefab in the controller script and reference where you want your projectile to come from. And once that's finally done, you should have this. If you found this tutorial helpful, please show your boy some support, and I wish you guys all the best in your games. Have fun!